Panic ensued in Washington, D.C. today as the death toll mounted.
A killer roaming the halls of the Washington Navy Yard looking for targets.
Several shots were fired. Several people inside the building have been injured.
Breaking news, and Amy, you've got the morning rundown over there. Police responding to the Washington Navy Yard.
The start of a new work week shattered by gunfire. At least one shooter opens fire inside the U.S. Navy Yard in Washington.
He aimed his gun at us, and then he fired at least 2 or 3 shots.
Photos of Alexis fit the description of eyewitnesses.
We are confronting yet another mass shooting.
September 16th, 2013. On that day, thousands of Navy Yard employees begin their work week like any other they had before, with traffic, public transportation, coffee, and greeting their coworkers. Because for them, this was just a regular work day. But they had no idea that one man was planning to bring a shotgun to work. They didn't have a clue that he would use this shotgun to take 12 lives, injure 3 others, and affect thousands more. They had no idea that their lives would be changed forever. So in today's video, I will be sitting down and talking with 2 people who were directly affected by the Navy Yard shooting. This tragedy actually took place 5 years from the day of the recording of this video. I thought the anniversary of that day would be the best time to put this together. So in a few minutes, I will be driving over there, setting up in their home, and just asking them questions about their experience on that day. Now, these 2 people I actually know extremely well because they're my parents. My mom was working in the building where the shooting happened, building 197, and my dad was at home and he couldn't get to the city while this was happening, and I was actually working a few miles away from my mom, so it was just a crazy thing. But I don't want to talk too much. I want to get right into it. So I usually don't do videos like this, but I hope you guys enjoy it and gain some type of value from it. So yeah, let's go. So first of all, do you guys know why I'm talking to you today? I think I told you, Dad, but Mom, do you know why I'm talking to you today? So today is September 16th. And on September 16th, I believe it was 2014, that's when the Navy Yard shooting happened. Was it 2014?
2013.
2013. Okay. So I figured, you know, time has passed. You've healed. This is not something that's I would say that's keeping you bound anymore, but I'm sure it's something that you think about sometimes. And I thought this would be a good time to like kind of just talk to you guys about your experience on that day. It was probably a pretty normal day for you. You probably didn't see this coming at all.
I didn't.
So take me through your day.
So I got up, got dressed, got in my car, went to the Navy Yard, just like I normally do. Parked, went into my office, normally put my stuff down, turn my computer on. Then I normally go downstairs and get coffee and get some breakfast. Was drinking my cup of coffee and heard some noise. Didn't think too much about it because normally we have facilities setting up tables or setting up for some kind of event. So my first thought was that they're dropping tables. The guys, they just dropping tables. So that was my first thought. But I kept hearing this pop, pop, like tables were being dropped, but it really wasn't a table, it was shooting. And for some reason I came out of my office and there's a little opening where you can hang over the rails and look down into the atrium area. And that's what I did. And at that time, I heard someone said active shooter. So I began to yell to my office, active shooter, get out. Active shooter, let's go, active shooter. But at that moment, you don't know where you're thinking. All you're thinking is, I need to get out of this building.
Yeah.
And you're hoping that everybody else get out safe. And you don't know where the shots were coming from. But we all ran out, we all got out. Matter of fact, after all of it was over, we found out that as we were exiting, the shooter was on the other side of our office in the hallway and just went to the opposite side. But if he had turned the opposite way, we were right there.
Wow.
So that afterward kind of was really eerie and really made me realize that the protection of God was on my life at that day. Once we ran down the stairs and exit and got into the garage, I know I almost lost it, but I had to bring myself back together real quick because I had an office. I had a whole staff that I needed to make sure they were okay.
Yeah.
So my instincts just kind of readjusted, and I began to think about, where's this person, where's that person, do we have this person here, do we have that person here? So I began to kind of take roll call, and then we're standing in the garage and they say, move out, and we begin to run again, and we ran across the whole entire base to get out, and we finally got off base, and we were kind of sitting around trying to figure out, we turned on the news and all we saw is active shooter. They were looking for this guy. But it kind of changed your whole life, and it kind of changed your whole psyche about being safe and security wise. So you begin to think now when you go in a place, you are more conscious. Your awareness, security awareness, safety awareness you're more alert about those type of things. And you're constantly, if you hear an announcement come over the intercom at work, or you hear a siren come on the base, you automatically begin to think, is this another incident? And there has been false incident.
SWAT teams, tactical units, and choppers swarming the scene. Ambulances at the ready for potential wounded. It turned out to be a false alarm, a 911 caller mistaking construction noise for a gunshot.
You never really kind of come off of that alert, whether you're in church, whether you're in a store, or whether certain noise kind of remind you of that day. But I think most of all, I was grateful that my entire office was safe. No one in my office, we didn't lose lives, but we did lose some precious and to me, people that didn't see this coming, and they were just going about their normal work day. But now I am so grateful for the first responders, for all the people that came to make sure we were safe. And I think that even now, I believe that the commanders, the senior leaders at NAVC is always aware of September 16th, what happened on that day. And they're always thinking about the safety of all the personnel.
I was going to ask you too, there's probably, it's not something for a lot of us, for people who weren't there, and people who weren't affected, and people who didn't lose family members. That was just a day that happened. It was a tragedy, and then they move on, and that's kind of it. But for you, like you said, you hear the siren, or you hear an alarm go off, or you see a police officer walking by with his hand on his weapon, and that triggers, sort of a little PTSD, from that event. And I think a lot of times people forget about that. Like, this is not something like, okay, you survived, you're fine for the rest of your life. It's something that affects you, in the long run.
Yes.
And you said you led people out of the building. One thing I wanted to mention is that's something you were actually recognized for.
Yes.
At the Navy Yard. And I actually still have the picture where, they just kind of recognize you for being a leader and relying on those instincts to say, let me make sure the people under me, my staff, let me make sure the people get out safely. So I definitely commend you for that. And I look up to you, you're my mom, and I look up to you because there's a lot of people in that situation. It's just like every man for themselves. They're shooting, I got to be safe. But you kind of you kind of put yourself to the side and tried to make sure that you could do something for somebody else to help them get out of that situation as well.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so you said you almost lost it when you got into the garage. Like, what were you thinking about that made you almost lose it?
I was thinking that, oh my God, you know, someone is actually shooting people in the building.
We have an officer down, building 197 on the 3rd floor.
And so I thought about that for a moment, and I caught myself when I realized that we were safe. Like I said, I gathered myself back because I was like, wait a minute, I'm the supervisor.
Yeah.
I'm the one that has to make sure other people are good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Dad, that day, I'm sure, you know, was just as crazy for you because in that moment you're helpless.
Yes.
Like there's nothing you could do, but the person that probably means the most to you in this world, you know, is in the midst of danger. So, I mean, how did you feel on that day?
That was a moment that I'll never forget because I actually was home that day. I didn't go into work. I think I was up late the night before, so I was actually sleeping that morning a little late.
Okay.
And when I got up, I turned on the news, and the first thing I saw was shooting at the Navy Yard. And of course, automatically I thought about, I hope, you know, my wife's okay, kind of thing. Not realizing that it was the actual building she was working in that was you know, this was happening at. So once I found it was building 197, I was like, oh my God, all of a sudden you just went into this, I hope everything's okay, I hope she's okay. I think I had begun to call and I couldn't get in touch right away with her. And I had some messages left on my phone that I had checked. And it was just a moment of almost like going into panic, but I had to keep myself together because at the same time I had to remember that, look, you know, you need to, this is a time you really need to pray.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can physically do about this situation but pray. And I began to pray for my wife. I began to pray that everything was okay. And it took a while to really got to the place where I found out that she was okay. And I can't tell you the sense of relief that I felt when I found out that she was okay. And my sister-in-law had went to pick her up. And they were, you know, after a while, they were on their way back. But at the same time, as much as I was happy and relieved for my wife, I was really saddened by, because knowing that there were other lives that were lost, precious lives that were lost. Somebody's husband, somebody's wife, somebody's child, somebody's dad, mom. I was very, very saddened about that, and actually began to pray for the families, because I know that there were multiple, you know, people that didn't make it at the time, and some that were seriously injured.
Yeah.
You know, so it was kind of a mixed emotions.
Yeah, I know for me, because I think I first heard about it, I was at work and Auntie called me. The thoughts that were going through my mind, like I wanted to call, but then I was like, what if she's somewhere hiding and I call her phone and I give her position away? That's one of the thoughts that went through my mind. So just like the thought of not knowing for me was very nerve-wracking. That was probably the most relieved I've ever felt about anything is when I heard your voice on the phone and I knew you were okay. My next question, and this is kind of for both of you guys, how was it in the days after?
I saw my wife still in that mode of trying to help because actually every day, or, you know, she was on the phone until sometime 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning at night because she's had to interact with different people, and there were a lot of people that were going through this shock, of course, needless to say, psychological shock and emotional trauma that they had went through, and they were kind of leaning and calling her for, you know, some comfort. And so she was constantly, she never really had a chance to think about what happened because right away it was phone call after phone call or email after email. She was constantly back and forth, you know, talking with people that really at that point needed help.
I was really just busy on the phone making sure that the people that were really affected and was really shaken up, I just wanted to make sure I was there. I told them if they needed me, call me. And so all of it was surreal. It was just unreal. But I think that my faith, being grounded in my faith, really helped me to keep it together. I think if I didn't have the faith in God that I had, I would have probably really lost it.
Well, I appreciate both of you guys just kind of sharing your story and your experience. I think this is something, too, a lot of people could learn from, because they could gain a better understanding of, you know, what people go through, you know, even after an event, you know, after a trauma, and as well as just remembering, hey, look, people lost their lives on their day. Let's take some time and just remember them for a minute. But I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad I still have a mom that I can call and say I love you, get advice from, and all those things.
And the other thing I wanted to say was one thing that I truly believe that anyone that was at work that day or on their way to work that day will never forget how they felt that day. And one of the good things that NAVC as a command does is they hold a memorial service. We have an entire day set aside to commemorate
that's good.
What has happened, and just to remind us and to remember the folks that lost their lives. One of the motto that came out of this is we won't forget. And we won't forget. They left home that morning planning to go back, but they did not know what they had to face that day. But I'm just grateful that NAVC has not forgotten what happened on that day. And NAVC always, as a command, remind us that, hey, there were people, lives lost, September the 16th, 2013.